As you step into the role of leader, something remarkable happens. You start to see yourself differently. Sure, there are additional tasks and duties, and likely a bunch of new meetings that you need to attend, but more importantly, you become something different than you have been in the past. You become the boss. Now, whatever that image conjures up for you, whether it is of a beloved former boss and mentor, or an image of your worst nightmare, chances are that image has never had your face on it, but now it does. And if you're like many of us, you have risen through the ranks of the agency by being an amazing personal contributor, working your ass off and getting stuff done. Being rewarded with a promotion is the ultimate testament of your skills and value to the agency. You have arrived. But just exactly where have you arrived? What does it mean for you to be the boss? And those air quotes are real, my friends, and loaded with a ton of emotional baggage, both good and bad. Now, you may notice people starting to treat you differently, and maybe you're not sure how to respond. You may start to miss the closeness you felt with your teammates. You may have friends that you used to work in partnership with who now report to you. Talk about awkward. The entire process can be highly isolating and confusing, and there is almost always zero preparation and training for helping you step into leadership. So that's what this section is all about, helping you become the very best leader you can. Because if you can't figure out how to get work done through others versus doing it yourself, you will burn out faster than a candle in a hurricane. There is this great story I love that helps illustrate the vast difference between a leader and a manager. In your role as an executive at a healthcare ad agency, you'll need to fulfill both roles, so it's critical that you distinguish between them because they each carry different requirements. One of the biggest failures of executives I've seen is this inability to understand when they should manage and when they should lead. Some senior leaders I've worked with have never led at all, managing the team and work and then being frustrated when they failed to continue in their career. The analogy goes like this. There were two kinds of officers in the U boats that landed on Normandy Beach in D Day in 1944. The officer at the back of the boat directed the soldiers and kept an eye on the way the invasion was going. He shouted commands about taking supplies into that area or filling in the gap in the line over there. He was the manager. There was another officer critical to the success of the Allied invasion. He was the guy at the front of the boat, shouting to the men over his shoulder, "Follow me!" as he stormed the beaches and dodged heavy fire. He was the leader. It's clear that both roles were critical to the success of the mission, just as both types of work are critical to the work you do and your team do for clients. You have to know when to be a manager in the back of the boat and when to inspire your team as a leader in the front. I've taken about 400,000 leadership training courses in my career. I'm exaggerating, but it felt that way. I've gone through private training centers, business schools, consulting groups. My agency hired groups to train us, books I've studied on my own, and on the job lessons. I have learned from making my own mistakes and also watching good and bad examples from other leaders. So, in this lesson, I want to share with you some of that experience and knowledge and help you understand how critical it is for you to set your leadership journey with intention and passion. It's worth saying again. I want you to set your leadership journey with intention and passion. Here's where you will begin your leadership path and start to make it uniquely your own. So, to do that, we'll cover the following topics. We'll talk about the definition of leadership, your leadership message or credo, really defining what you stand for as a leader, how to develop a vision and why, a cautionary tale about managing your ego as you step into leadership, how to assess and build your team, what it means to relate to your boss as you grow in your career, and how to manage your relationship with higher level leaders in the agency. I'm also including a lot of resources and readings for you in this part of the course. You can read these or download them and refer to them later. I've selected some of my favorite readings, books, and articles that have helped me as I've risen to different levels, and I hope they help you too. Let's get started. So, what is a leader? Well, if you do it, let's talk about your leadership statement. This is the first thing you should think about as you step into your leadership role. It's your mission statement. What do you stand for as a leader? Now, this can be challenging if you've never thought of yourself as a leader before, but just with a few simple steps, you can develop a leadership mission statement, share it effectively with your team, and use it as a guide for your career. The first step is to understand why a leadership mission statement is important at all. There are 4 questions the leadership mission should answer. These questions are on the minds of everyone on your team and here on the screen. The first is, what do you stand for? What are your motivations? Why did you want to become a leader? Your team and those you lead will want to understand what you want to accomplish and why they should follow you. The second is, why should I trust you? People are often suspicious of leaders, especially someone who may have been at the same level and was recently promoted. Are you going to hold old grudges, or is this a new day? Do you bring some special skills and knowledge to their work? Can they count on you to look out for their best interests as well as the firm? People want to know if they can having place their trust in you and to help them succeed. Now, the third is more tactical. What can I expect from you? Will you be available for them? Do you want to work alongside them? Are you someone who's focused on the business goal, or do you also want to innovate and learn from failure? What will working with you on a daily basis be like? Do you seek to gain consensus, or are you interested in driving performance? The last question is the hardest to answer, but the most critical for you to know and share with your team. Who are you? What makes you tick? What fires your passion and gets you out of bed in the morning? What do you love? What in your life has shaped you? Here are a few questions that can guide the creation of your mission statement. You start with what brought you to this point. What were the decisions that you made that led you to this role? How did you respond to challenges? Don't be afraid to get personal. It can really help people relate to you. You don't have to go into a lot of detail or share things that you feel are too personal, but a perspective on what you struggled with and how you overcame a challenge to become a better leader can help people understand where you are coming from and identify with you as a person. Next, ask yourself how you really define your role. What is your primary objective in your role as a leader? To make the team successful, to help build the team, to turn the company around and make it profitable again, to guide the team during a challenging brand launch? Whatever your goal as a leader, you should be able to articulate it in one sentence. It helps not only define who you are as a leader, but it helps your team understand what the goals are. Then, think about your values and principles. I have a strong value for a sense of play. I like to have fun, and I truly believe that everyone works better and has more energy when we're having a good time. Now, I make sure that my teams know that doesn't mean goofing off or missing deadlines, but it does mean there's a lightness that I like to bring to the work. I've always believed that better ideas, innovation, creative solving problems, all those things happen when there's a really safe place to play and explore. So that's part of what I value, and I share that with my teams. What do you value? How do you define your principles? Integrity? Making sure the team wins versus one person winning? Thinking about some of the words that describe your values. As part of the downloadable resources in this section, I've included a list of words you can review and select some values. Take a look through them and choose several that are really meaningful to you, and then cut them down to only 2 or 3. Make them the 3 that really inspire you and make your heart beat a little faster in excitement. The list I've included is from Scott Jeffrey, who offers a course on finding your values. So if you're still struggling and need more help, he's a great online resource to explore. I keep my 3 words, which are play, discovery, and focus, in a card in my wallet. I like to keep them close to remind me of what I do and why I do what I do. On days I feel drained, I sometimes reflect on these values. It is almost always the case that I haven't been behaving according to these values that day. I haven't taken time to play or discover something new, and I've been so distracted that I lost focus. It is helpful to keep your values in mind at all times as you grow your career. The last 2 questions are more about answering the questions in your team's mind and thinking about your message from their point of view. What do you value, and how do your values and experiences and mission mean something to them? What can they expect from you as a leader? How will their lives and careers be different with you as a leader than they were before? Reflecting and thinking deeply on these questions, even journaling about them, doodling about them, mapping your career path to learn what shaped you, all of these are key to coming up with your leadership mission statement. Take the time to do this work. It will guide you for the rest of your life. I used to have mine. I've used mine to guide my career, but I was also surprised to see it start to shape the decisions I made in my personal life too. There is tremendous benefit from this exercise. As part of this lesson, I've uploaded my leadership mission statement so you can get a sense of what this can look and sound like. Your leadership mission is an important message to deliver, but there will be other many times that you'll have to speak as a leader, and doing this effectively is crucial to building the respect and engagement of your team. Here's a great framework I've used time and time again. It's from the Toastmasters West Coast chapter website. Toastmasters is a wonderful organization. If you're unsure or unfamiliar with speaking in public or just want to improve your ability to speak and give speeches, seek out a local chapter and join up. There's one in every city. They do an excellent job of providing a supportive environment for speaking and practicing your skills. You basically speak at every single meeting. In the Westside Toastmasters webpage, the page promoting the Los Angeles chapter of Toastmasters, there are a series of resources to help you improve your speaking style. This framework is one of my favorites because it's easy to remember and it constantly reminds me of what I need to do in each interaction with my team, and everything begins with the letter I. So I've listened to many leaders who are uncomfortable speaking in public, failing to prepare, and you end up droning on because they just don't know how to stop. So from my training as an actor, I know how important it is to plan your starts and stops, and this framework does that really, really well. There are 4 things that you have to prepare when speaking to a group. Now, each of these is really important, but the first is just kind of a purpose for why you want to speak. Whether it's a brief statement or a status meeting or a major presentation, keep these 4 elements in mind whenever you're planning your speaking in front of people. The first one is informing. You kind of always need to inform people what's going on. Don't mince words or beat around the bush. Nature abhors a vacuum. So if you withhold something or the longer you wait to provide important information, the more people are going to fill that vacuum just with rumor, supposition. They'll basically fill in the blank. So you need to keep people up to date with as much information as you have, but maybe not all the information you have. Likely as a leader, you have information about what might happen and how to plan for situations that may not come to pass. No need to share information that could cause people to be concerned when there's no need to be. The second piece is to be involved and to really involve others, asking for their input. People invest in a world they help create. You need to listen to your team to understand how to move forward. There are many stories about great leaders walking the floors of their manufacturing plants or selling territories, asking for the opinions of their employees themselves. The owner of a major trucking company was showing me around his company when a driver waved him down to complain for nearly 20 minutes about the price of gas. Now, I was more than a little horrified that this driver was wasting the time of the president of the company by telling him about something the president surely got daily reports on. Yet the president patiently waited for him to finish, and as we walked away, he said to me, "I get reports all day long on the cost of diesel, but I don't know what the drivers and operators feel about it unless I talk to them directly." He understood the value of really listening so he could understand and not just know. The third one is ignite. I love this one. You just really ignite people's imagination and passion. Your words can light people up, help them see a new vision and get excited about what you're leading them towards. Use descriptive language and images when you speak to ensure people understand what their work and the company might look like should you reach your goals or manage the challenges you're facing. If you want great examples of leaders who have the ability to ignite people, check out any speech by some of the greatest speakers. Martin Luther King and Gandhi are both excellent examples. And lastly, invite. You need to invite people to share their own perspective. You don't have to do all the talking. Now, this may fly in the face of your current experience where leaders stand on a stage or a podium and talk all the whole time, but great leaders really don't hog the spotlight. They share it. When addressing a large group, plan ahead of time and pass the microphone to someone else. Make sure that person's prepared and encourage him to share a perspective or tell a story about an experience or a win that they had. In this way, you're lifting up the contributions of others and helping to build a collective sense for the vision that you are deepening. All four of these elements should be present in every message you deliver as a leader. It may seem like a lot, but with a little practice, you can learn how to adapt this framework to a variety of different settings. The staff meeting, the annual kickoff meeting, the pitch meeting, the award acceptance at the Addies. No matter the setting, you can follow the framework to make your message more effective and inspiring. This next lesson is a really important one. In my years as a leader, and even before I entered a leadership role, I had seen and experienced the phenomenon of drinking your own Kool-Aid. Now, this is just my term, but what it means is blindly accepting the praise and support people give you as if you deserve it, instead of acknowledging that it's often due to your role more than you as a person or a leader. People look up to leaders and want to emulate them. People also recognize the power in a leader and are careful what they say and do around them. Now, for those of you not familiar with Kool-Aid, it's a sugary drink given to kids. It has so much sugar and bright colors that it can often mask the additives that are not as healthy. College kids often mix green alcohol with Kool-Aid and serve it at the parties. It goes down so easily that people often drink too much. The idea here is that if you drink the Kool-Aid people serve you because you're a leader without realizing there's something else in there, like fake praise and admiration, you're drinking your own Kool-Aid. You're believing your own hype. Now, have you ever laughed at a joke a leader told even though it wasn't funny? Have you given your manager or leader a status report that emphasizes how well everything's going and downplays the failures? This is just human nature. If you have done it to your leader, then chances are your team will do it to you. First-time leaders fall into this trap a lot. You have to be really watch out for how you are accepting information and analyze it before deciding if it's true or not. It can be exhausting, but it's one of the most important things you can do as a leader. I wrote a blog about my own experience with this, and I'm including it as part of the lesson materials. Feel free to read through it and learn how I had to acknowledge my own shortcomings as a leader instead of blindly accepting the praise and positive reinforcement people were giving me. Advertising agencies tend to be pretty hierarchical places, and your title matters a lot. That means it's even more important that you become aware of how others are acting around you and guard against letting that position go to your head. So now you have your leadership message and you are ready to assess and build your team. So as you start to build your team, or even just assess the team that you already have or inherited, it's important to understand 4 types of people. Now, everyone can fall into one of these areas at some point, depending on the position, so keep in mind that these labels aren't a reflection of the person's character or of their potential, just their performance in the current role right now. So, you first take a look at 2 dimensions just to really keep it simple. The first is motivation. How engaged and excited are they about the work? Do they inquire about the direction you'll take the team, ask for additional opportunities, offer new insights in meetings? Are they mentoring others or actively networking? Or are they taking long lunches, coming in late, making disparaging comments about the clients or the team? Motivation and engagement are good indications of how much future a person sees in their position with the agency. I found that most agency people are highly motivated, but some find themselves at a healthcare agency and think it's a step down from real agency work like selling cars and candy bars. But these are hard perceptions to change, so it's good to assess the motivation level of your team members. Then the other axis is the vertical axis, and that's thinking about their skill levels. Are they able to do the work beyond their years or their position? Are they someone you believe is building expertise or actively growing? Do you rely on them to lead meetings and handle project conversations on their own? Skill level is a real basic parameter for employees. It's interesting how often leaders fail to stop and ask themselves how good the team members are at their job, but it's really important to do that. So if we look at just these 2 dimensions, you end up with 4 basic team member types, and each type requires a different way to lead and manage. So let's go through each one. The first one is those with high skills, but low motivation. These are what I call the naturals. They are people who have found themselves in their position because they're highly intelligent and talented. The problem is they aren't always aware of how hard they need to work. The job has always come so easy to them, so they haven't had to try too hard, and so their motivation is very low. They procrastinate work, they end up coming through at the last minute, but with a brilliant deliverable. They don't work well with others because of their last minute I'm a genius work style that makes others on the team and on the account frustrated. The key for these employees is to find out what motivates them. Do they have an outside work interest they'd like to spend more time on? Do they crave teamwork over leading a new project? Usually, the motivating factors for this group are difficult to determine, and you really have to ask them about their goals and gain their trust, and then listen. Once you have determined what motivates them, assign projects carefully. Make sure the project aligns with their skills and interest areas. If you can't tailor the work to their interests, then you will need to find out ways of incorporating their interests into the work. Are they interested in digital marketing or data? Make sure they get an opportunity to work on those aspects of the account. If a team member has high motivation, or a team member has low motivation and low skills, then they're what I call the misfit. This might be somebody on your team that just is just a poor fit for the work. They maybe not as skilled and they're not very motivated to improve. Now, these employees sometimes have bounced around from team to team as many managers prefer to shift them to other teams versus deal with them. The best thing to do with these employees is to gain an understanding of where they provide value. Are they good at certain things but not much else? Is there a role for them to play in supporting the rest of the team? Or are they just misplaced? What do they want to do? How do they see their strengths? Using all of this information, you can start to make a decision about where they belong. Now, sometimes you inherit a team member like this who's a challenge to deal with. It's important to talk to HR and work with them to make sure you deal with employee fairly. It's never easy to let an employee go, but if it comes to that, make sure everybody on your team is working to do their best. You have to have the skills to deliver great work and do the job that your team is requiring. So, taking action when the employee is not performing is something you do to show respect for those on the team who are doing a really good job. And in my experience, whenever you fire someone or let them go, they nearly always find a better position that's better suited to their skills and goals. Now, if you have a team member that is highly motivated and not very talented, then that's who I call the up and comer. These are people who are really ready for some new opportunities and are still developing. So they are someone who is really interested in learning, they want to develop their skills, and they really want to understand how they could be better. So they're really looking for mentorship and they want to really understand some learning opportunities. Now, these are great team members to send to an industry conference or recommend taking my course like Farm School 101. These are terrific people that are eager and exciting, and they're really wonderful to have on the team. It's critical to identify them early so that you can make sure that you provide those learning opportunities for them. And lastly, you have the team member that has high motivation and high skills. These guys are easy to spot. They are the aces on your team. They're recognized as high performers, and you're usually in high demand from other team members. Senior leadership has usually taken an interest in them, may even mention them to you as you're taking on the team. So you're going to want to groom one of these aces as your replacement when you get promoted next. Now, the approach here of managing an ace is to provide mentorship and guidance. They're likely in need of more of your time to help them map their career path and encouragement. Really need to understand where they focus their development. They're likely eager for promotion and will ask you when they'll be eligible for more responsibility. So be sure to reflect on what skills they need to master to be successful at the next level and give them opportunities to develop these. Can they lead a client meeting, brief the creative team? Really think about new business pitches. These are great opportunities and places for them to stretch themselves and hone their leadership and presentation skills. The ace typically needs more networking opportunities, so leading and participating in a pitch is a great way to give them the ability to work alongside senior leaders and grow their connections. They can also be a wonderful person to pair with the up-and-comer to give them some management experience. The up-and-comer will gravitate toward the ace, and the ace will appreciate mentoring the up-and-comer. So that could be a really nice combination. So once you start to take a look at the people on your team, the next step is to think about your new boss. Now, this is the last concept that I want to cover, and it's an important one. There's this idea of managing up, and this is often missed by many up-and-coming leaders. Managing up refers to doing whatever you can to make your boss's job easier by essentially managing your manager. Now, let's be clear, I'm not talking about being a sycophant or sucking up to your boss. I once had a line in a play where I cautioned another actor not to be obsequious. I used to love that word. It means to suck up, but that's not all we're talking about here. We're talking about being useful and helpful to the person that you need to influence to get more opportunities and promotion. We're talking about understanding more about the next level of leadership so that you can gain an understanding of what it might take to get there yourself. On your journey to leadership, you will need to understand how to best interact with your direct manager. And this person will be a higher and higher level leader the more you advance in your career. Interacting with an executive vice president, managing director, or even the CEO is much different than interacting with a vice president or an account group soup. You can use this simple method to make sure you're effectively performing in this critical area, and there are a ton of books on the topics. So I've included an article in the downloadable section of this lesson from the Harvard Business Review that talks about managing up and some of the key things to think about. But here's a synopsis. The first one is just to be sure you're communicating your priorities and asking for feedback. So really make sure your leader knows what you're going to focus on in the time between this check-in and your next. Make sure that they're the right things and ask your boss what they think. What are your boss's priorities for the same time period? Do they align? These are all great questions to ask. Then anticipate what your boss needs. What is your boss trying to accomplish? What goals have they set for themselves and the organization? What will your boss need to make a decision, that you might want to weigh in on? Think about what your boss might need to help them get the information or the exposure they want. You can even ask them, what are some of their goals? I had a boss once who always wanted to deliver gratitude and praise to employees, so I made sure he always knew about high performers on my team and asked him to reach out with congratulations, making sure I gave him all the details to refer to when talking to my team member. This was highly effective. He felt that he was being more effective and connected with the organization, and my team members felt so special at being recognized by the managing director. Understand what makes your boss tick. How does your boss like to work? What's his or her style? What are their professional goals? What are their strengths and weaknesses? If you know more about your boss, it's going to help you modify the information you give them and plan how you can help them be successful. And remember, if you help your boss get promoted, you may get promoted too. Know the right way to talk to your boss about problems. Now, this is a critical skill to develop. How does your boss like to be presented with problems? Now, it is possible to email them, maybe call them on their cell, or do they prefer to have you wait until you meet face to face? I have had different kinds of leaders. I've had leaders who valued immediacy over all else, and I would text them with challenges and updates the moment I discovered or experienced them. I've also had leaders who didn't want to even hear about a problem until we were sitting down in our weekly one-on-one session and they could deal with it quietly and in an order. So if you know how your boss likes to get information on problems and challenges, then you can adjust your delivery and style to get the support and answers you need. And if you don't know, you can always ask them. Learn how to be well-rounded and a well-rounded source of help. So this is really important as you think about what kind of resource you need to be for your boss. Are they leading up a new business pitch? Is your boss about to negotiate with the procurement department? Figure out how you can help your boss prepare for these and other situations. Offer yourself up as a sounding board for them and always maintain their confidentiality. When they know they can trust and rely on you, your leader will pull you into more opportunities and trust you with information that will help you grow within the agency. These books that I put here are great resources for managing up for all kinds of leaders. Now, there will be many times you have a boss that's more difficult to manage than others, and these are good to have on hand so as you put your plan together to manage up effectively. So that completes the first lesson of the leadership section, the leadership journey. Be sure to check out the additional reading materials included in this lesson, including a list of my favorite leadership and personal development books. See you in the next lesson.